Hello. Welcome to the project, Freedom and AI.
If you found your way to this content via Google or some other search engine, artificial intelligence played a role. Like in our everyday lives. In this episode, we will speak about AI and freedom of expression.
Most people, when they look at those social media, they see it as the optimal tool to emphasize the right to freedom of speech, because you can post and everyone can look at it, and you're happy because you see that people share your opinion. But in reality, I don't really think that the right to freedom of speech is that emphasized in those platforms. And I give an example that actually happened to me maybe a month ago. I wrote this little piece about gender perspective of AI, and I shared it on a platform. It was LinkedIn. And after a couple of days, I realized that 95% of the people who reacted to my post were women, which of course can be understandable because maybe they are more interested in that. But then I checked with my significant other, who is supposed to be the person who first sees those messages that come from my profile due to our interaction, constant interaction with each other. And then it turned out that he never really saw it. So what does this mean? It means that the algorithm behind the platform actually selected, maybe recognized through natural language processing, the keywords such as gender perspective, and just didn't offer it to him, even though he's the one who reacts most to my publications.
Fundamentally, a lot of the algorithms, how they work, we don't know. This is proprietary, and the search engine operators and the social media platform operators, they keep that secret. They don't want to share it with us. But there are certain fundamental aspects that we can sort of figure out based on what we observe in the media world. So the simplest kinds of algorithms to understand are the ones that remove content. They're the filters, the things that decide this is not okay to be put up. And these ones, how they work, you basically show them a lot of examples. You show them examples of things that are okay and things that are not okay. And based on this huge amount of examples, the algorithms learn. Now, do not confuse a machine learning with a human learning. A machine, when it learns, what it's doing is picking up a pattern. So it will find a pattern in the data that you've given it, and this pattern will enable it to predict when it sees a new object, whether this object fits into the pattern of things that are okay to put up, or whether it fits into the pattern of things that are not okay.
Algorithms are not very good in analyzing context. They use the words or they use certain terminologies on the basis of which they remove content, but they don't analyze the context. Algorithm is not able to distinguish between usage of certain video for reporting and journalistic purposes and for the purposes of spreading terrorism. They are not able to recognize a joke and legitimate incitement to violence, right? So this is the problem.
We see numerous ways that AI can impact freedom of expression. We see social media monitoring algorithms that are designed to identify people who are a threat before they've committed a crime. But all too often, these systems are trained to racially profile, to simply emulate the sort of bias policing we've seen of online speech for decades. A lot of these systems that we see in the speech regulation space, they aren't sophisticated enough to really understand the nuance of human communication. And even when they're trained with cutting edge technology, all too often they can just penalize people for the choice of words, for their vernacular, for their dialect, rather than the fact that they actually pose a threat.
Sometimes content moderation is meant to only mean the removal of content automatically. For example, a certain thing you say gets flagged as being offensive or inappropriate, and it is removed. Of course, there are great difficulties with that already, because, for example, if you have a tweet that consists of 3 words and the AI doesn't know if these 3 words are the same language, it might flag a tweet as inappropriate and delete it because it's had the German article die, which means the, but it read it as die, which is English.
AI has an undeniable role in the way users see information online, both through means of algorithmic censorship, which encompasses content display and content moderation. And here I would like to stress out that freedom of expression is a cornerstone of the society. And we need to have informed decision-making in order to trust the processes of the state. So our content display is personalized depending on the algorithm's assertions. And then we see how results are appearing in our social media news feeds.
The content is always personalized. What we see on our news feeds is very unique. There are no 2 news feeds that are alike. Probably because, in fact, we don't even know. We have no way to investigate any of this because we are not allowed to access this type of data as researchers. We also don't know why the platform's algorithm decides to show us particular content. We can't understand if this is because the user engagement is higher with this post in comparison to others, or because the person who posted it has a higher ratio of user engagement, or because the platform thinks we belong to a certain group of people, whether or not this is the case, or maybe it thinks that based on our profile, we are more affordable to a certain advertiser in comparison to another. The way we interact online doesn't necessarily reflect who we are or what we want to do. Sometimes we are just interested in something. However, the data that we generate, even if we're just, casually interested in something, may have an effect on what is shown to us in the future.
Freedom of expression is not an absolute right. It's a right that has limitation, and also in the European law and in the US law under the First Amendment. And now I think it's a striking case with the President of the United States that has been blocked on his social media accounts after he incited to violence. And I think this is the most important case of freedom of expression online in the recent time, when we saw that even political leaders can be limited in their actions, and they cannot just say that it was free speech, because even free speech has a limit on that, and platforms are now able to decide what is the limit, what is legal to be online, and what should be removed.
Actually, the main question is not should be account blocked or not, but who has the power to do that, and whose responsibility is to say that account can be blocked or should be blocked or should not be blocked. I mean, it's a problem when you have a private company which can decide that for a president on one country. I don't say that in a way that I think it's a company's fault or it is not company's fault. It's just the example that shows us that we really need some better defined procedures what to do in that situations.
It is quite clear that as a former president, he will still be able to speak out and he will still be listened to. You can, of course, question whether a private company should really have the power to make such decisions, should really be the one to be able to decide who has a platform to speak and who doesn't. But at the same time, I think it's almost distracting to speak about this one case, because there are so many other of people who, if they are being blocked or taken down, really don't have a platform anymore to speak, or might be kind of like going to very nudge, kind of like a very unregulated, unmoderated, kind of potentially problematic alternative channels, where there has also been a lot of research about radicalizing effects. And then maybe in a long time, if you look at it from kind of a meta perspective, it might have an even more problematic impact on radicalization and social cohesion.
Well, the artificial intelligence itself doesn't have an opinion about our free speech, but it is the people who use it. So for me, technology and artificial intelligence is just technology, is a tool for people to use. And again, it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. So what happens when you use artificial intelligence or algorithms basically is patterns that are normally done by humans. So human thinking, human actions are now being automated. So if something that is limiting your freedom of speech is being automated, it basically limits your freedom of speech. So we need to be mindful of that always.
I organize events for women in AI, women in data, and we talk all the time with CEOs of AI companies, startups, that are trying to find better ways of designing their products, trying to find ways that are not going to take certain liberties with their users, and I think that's really the future here, and we can only really get there with an open culture of enthusiasm, curiosity, and a culture that really rewards diversity of thought and diversity of experience as we go forward. Because as it stands right now, there are a lot of negative externalities, and I want to minimize those.
If we look at this kind of like error-prone aspects of technology that might lead to false positive and false negative, so potentially like an over blocking of legitimate information that is, of course, obviously problematic from a free speech perspective, but maybe also to false negatives, meaning that certain problematic content that might have a chilling effect on the speech of others, and is hence also problematic from a free speech and pluralism point of view. We need to find safeguards or like responses to these kind of like error-prone technologies or these aspects and biases. But at the same time, I think we also have to take one step further and not only wait until AI is better or until AI is more sophisticated and more capable of being more accurate and having more efficient and effective results and less error rates. This is, of course, important, but I think we also have to take the second step and think about, do we even want to have the use of technology and make and kind of outsource this responsibility to technology? Because I think it's a very kind of convenient thinking to just have this kind of solution or this magical bullet that we often think technology is.
In the next episode, we will speak about AI and content. In the meantime, check our website, www.freedomanai.com.